Mr. S.N. Lahiri has exited L&T Mutual Fund. Now, that brings us to the question that as mutual fund investors, how closely should you be watching out for top-level management exits? I own an XYZ mutual fund. If the manager exits, leaves, or there's another manager in his or her place, should I give my mutual fund a re-look? Now, just to set the context, here's what is managed by S.N. Lahiri. These are the funds managed in L&T by S.N. Lahiri, and this has been the performance. As you can see, it's really, not been that bad, with the exception of perhaps an emerging business fund. Rest of the funds have done pretty well. So now let's take this discussion forward with Mr. P.V. Subramaniam, who's joining us on the show now. Mr. Subramaniam, thank you so much for joining us on the Money Show. Yes, Mr. S.N. Lahiri has quit, so I think let's start off with that question for the benefit of all our viewers who may be holding any of those funds, that are being managed by him. Firstly, how adept do you think was Mr. S.N. Lahiri as a fund manager? How bad of a blow could his schemes, have with his exit?
Let's face it, Larry is not the first fund manager to quit, nor is he the last fund manager to quit. So,
yes,
quittings have been happening pretty regularly. Now, Gopal Agarwal quit Mirai, and Mirai seems to have managed it very well. Let us go back a little in history. When Fidelity was sold to L&T, or L&T bought over the business of
yes,
Fidelity, the fund managers didn't come in. The fund managers stayed back with Fidelity. They didn't come to L&T. And at that time, I would have advised people just get out because you do not know what L&T is going to do. But if you didn't listen to me and if you stayed on in the fund, you have not done badly at all. You have still done well because over the last few years of Fidelity quitting, L&T has managed it well. Now you have other fund houses where Mr. Sunil Singhania quit and Reliance now called Nippon Mutual Fund has managed it well, Mirai managed it well. In case of Franklin Templeton, they manage exit, they manage retirement, and I think it's okay. And Manish quit ICICI Prudential and they seem to have managed well. Only thing is case of Franklin Templeton and ICICI, they've done something smart. They put two fund managers, especially in their bigger funds. So what happens is both the fund managers are hands-on as to what is happening. So when one fund manager quits, the other person will be able to take it. Now DSP has done one step ahead and they've created their own investment philosophy statement as to how a fund manager will invest. So I think all funds houses have their own theories on how to handle it. They all have their written down processes. They know what they are doing. The fund managers create a lot of documentation because the trustees and directors need it, the regulator needs it. So I don't think it's very difficult. And please also understand, retirement and exits are easy to handle because you still get 90 days notice. What happens in case of death? When a fund manager dies, what happens to the fund? Nothing really happens because all of it is in the written down process. Nobody is, it's not being run like a cowboy. People have rules, regulations, they know what they're buying, what percentage they're buying. So I think it's not so much of a thing to worry about. You have to only wonder whether L&T has enough processes written down. I'm sure they will have, and how well they communicate with their investors and their their IFAs and the branch bank relationship managers, so that they are able to take it forward and tell the clients what will happen. I don't think there is any need to panic. You should just stick around, see for 6 months, 8 months whether the philosophy of the fund is changing much. For example, in ICICI, I know that Naren stepped in and handled the philosophy of the fund, because he said the fund philosophy should not change, and the fund managers, they were choosing what shares to buy, and Naren was controlling the philosophy of the fund. So if you can do all those kind of things, and I think all fund houses today are big enough and mature enough to do it, and all of them are handling huge amounts of money, I think this basic precaution is taken. So I don't think they have to do anything. I'm just waiting for L&T to communicate well with the IFAs and the bank and the investors to know what steps they're going to take. There were two very senior people, one handling equity, one handling debt. I don't think you need to worry at all. Just stick around, see around for 6-8 months, 1 year. If you don't like, at that time you take a call. But otherwise, right now, don't panic, don't do anything, just stay there.